In mythological tales, there exists the thousand-mile eye. In the world of Naruto, there is the Sharingan. Our protagonist today possesses a pair of eyes so extraordinary that I'm at a loss for what to call them. After hearing this, perhaps you can come up with a name for them. This story originates from a netizen who goes to bed late and wakes up early. At the end of June 2021, Xiao Tian found a job in a greenhouse in the mountains, where his task was to count the seedlings of the crops. He would rush between the 3 greenhouses, living in a tin container, under very harsh conditions. Every day, he would wake up early and inspect the greenhouse on the northern slope in the dark. There would definitely be a circle of old graves, and the container where Xiao Tian slept was only 20 meters away from the graves. But he was never afraid, going back and forth several times a day, always politely saying to the air, "Ah, sorry to disturb everyone, excuse me, excuse me." However, the boss was very demanding with Xiao Tian. Sometimes after counting the seedlings, when Xiao Tian went to the bathroom, the villagers would call the boss, and he would immediately be called back. Sometimes he was called back without even taking off his pants, as if he were being watched like a slave. So, until the evening before the 6th day, Xiao Tian was scolded by the boss again. The young man thought, who could bear it, being scolded 5 times a day, and he decided not to do it anymore and to go home tomorrow. Having decided to go home the next day, that night became his last night there. Xiao Tian inexplicably always wanted to go to the old grave to take a look. At around 11 o'clock at night, he drank more than half a gin of white wine and went there. He bowed to the grave and said thank you, grateful that it didn't scare him, then complained about his grievances in the past few days, complaining that the work was almost like being sold. Anyway, he nagged a lot. Suddenly, he heard a strange cry, and he looked along the sound. There was a pair of yellow big eyes staring at him. Xiao Tian immediately scared to wet his pants. But the so-called enemy does not move. I do not move. Xiao Tian looked at the eyes. Suddenly the eyes rushed towards him. At this time, he found that this was a big owl, so he subconsciously blocked it with his hand. As a result, the owl landed on an old grave next to Xiao Tian, scratching with its claws and pecking at the old grave. At that time, Xiao Tian didn't know what to think. He picked up a few mud lumps from the ground and smashed them at the owl. As a result, the owl was provoked, and it pounced on Xiao Tian, and the man and the owl fought like this. Although the owl was eventually driven away, Xiao Tian's face and arms were injured, especially his eyes were scratched. At that time, he didn't know when. Anyway, the owl left. Xiao Tian said goodbye to the old grave, thanked everyone for their concern, saying that if someone dares to move them, he will definitely not ignore it. He also made it even, "See you in the next life." Then he fainted and went back to sleep. The next morning was already after 9 o'clock. When he opened his eyes, he felt like there was a layer of frosted glass in front of his eyes. He wondered if his eyes were injured last night, and he was quite scared. Anyway, he had to leave this ghost place today. After going home, the condition of his eyes did not improve. He went to the hospital for examination, and the doctor said he was nearsighted. But Xiao Tian's eyesight has always been very good. How can he be nearsighted overnight? He felt very depressed. No money was earned, he was angry, and he lost his eyes. That night, he had a very strange dream. In the dream, in a brightly lit market, a group of men, women, old and young were beating gongs and drums, smiling around him without speaking. An old man came to him from the crowd with a plate, and when he opened the red cloth on the plate, there was a pair of shining pearls. The old man stuffed the pearls into his hand. A group of people still surrounded him, smiling, and Xiao Tian was completely confused. The next day he woke up and wanted to see what time it was, but as soon as he sat up, he clearly saw the clock on the wall across. It was 10:30 in the morning. Strange, how did his eyesight recover overnight? Of course, no matter what, the mood must be very good. But later, more and more is wrong. He found that sometimes as long as he looks at others, and then does not look, does something casually to divert attention, recalls the picture of looking at that person, the picture will change a lot. Some are internal organs, some are skulls, a bit of a cross-section feeling, but there will be color. Once, he had dinner with friends, looking at a friend, the color of the right rib was like yellow mud. He suddenly asked, "Are you high cholesterol or high blood sugar?" This friend looked very confused, but he still said high blood sugar. There was another time when he had dinner with a colleague of a relative, looking at the colleague of the relative, there were 2 grays on his neck, and his eyes were very prominent. Xiao Tian asked again, "Have you ever had thyroid surgery?" That person also said yes. More and more such situations. Later, Xiao Tian found a rule: white and gray represent surgery that will be fine soon, black still has some problems, yellow mud color is a chronic disease, and red indicates what's going on. Until now, Xiao Tian has not understood, there are purple and other colors. Xiao Tian was very scared at the time, he suspected whether he had hallucinations, whether he had mental illness. He also went to the Anding hospital, where he had an examination and talked about the situation. But the doctor said it was okay, it might be due to poor rest, too much pressure, just relax. Later, Xiao Tian suspected whether this was related to metaphysics. At the end of November 2021, he found out that his good brother was from the Genji school. At that time, after telling people about the situation, the good brother gave Xiao Tian a conclusion: because he has been single for too long, has always been a child, plus this period of time getting up early and getting tanned by the sun, a bit of opening his eyes. So, if one day the body is broken, this thing will disappear. This good brother also said that the biggest secret of the Genji school is to practice the eyes. Xiao Tian's is a natural communication of the orifices, quite interesting. However, people like Xiao Tian, if they do not intend to cultivate the Tao, or use less, in case one day the body is broken or someone else sees the wrong disease, it is unbearable. Of course, Xiao Tian has never thought about cultivating the Tao. A while ago he talked about this with a friend. That friend curiously asked Xiao Tian to take a look. At that time, he played a video on WeChat. As a result, Xiao Tian took a look, turned around, and reviewed the picture. At that time, there was no color, just a normal person. But he knew that this brother has always been in poor health, has diabetes, and wanted to know how this function was inexplicably turned off. So he found a few old classmates to record specifically and found that it was still not possible, including when he looked in the mirror at himself, but it was still possible to see others on the road. Over time, he concluded that if he couldn't see through a piece of glass, it was invisible. So now Xiao Tian always wears a pair of glasses with no degree, and the front is much more normal, and it's clean all at once. How to say this may be fate. But after thinking for a long time, I still can't think of what to call this pair of eyes. What do you think? Well, see you in the next story.